guys, Andrew Berg here. So last week I posted this video, the 10 things to look for before sight reading something. So in this video, I just wanted to go through some practice sight reading checks using that same process. I'm going to go through one in-depth sight reading check and then two more in real time, so you can really get the idea of what the goal should be. But first, like and subscribe so we can feed the YouTube algorithm. Alright, so for this first one, we're going to dive a little bit more in depth. We're going to be using this list on the left-hand side. So the first thing on there is the time signature. So that's going to be found in the upper left-hand corner. For this, we're in 4/4. That means that there's 4 beats in the measure and the chord note gets the beat. Alright, the second thing on the list is the key signature. This one we have 1 flat. That puts us in the key of F. And that flat that we have is B flat. So if you don't know your scales that well, that's completely fine. All you have to do is know that anytime you see a B come up in this, it's going to be a B flat. Okay, third thing on the list is tempo and style. So for this, it's also found in the upper left-hand corner. We're going to be looking at the tempo being at chord note equals 80 beats per minute. And for style, all we have here is light and moving. So take that into consideration when you are playing. You want to make sure that whatever you're playing, it doesn't sound too heavy, doesn't sound too bogged down. Okay, the fourth thing on the list is do they change? So for this, we're going to be looking at these first 3 things, and we want to see if they change at all throughout the piece. So, again, we start off in 4/4 in the key of F and at 80 beats per minute at light and moving. Alright, so we'll go through this. And, okay, so right here we're going to chord note equals 100. Okay, we have a retardando right here, so we'll be slowing down back into 80 at this point. And that's about it. On to number 5, the roadmap. So roadmap is referring to anything that stops you from going from the top of the piece down to the bottom of the piece in just one clean sweep. So for that, we're going to be looking at anything that's a repeat, a first and second ending, fermatas, anything that will stop us from just going straight through the piece. So start up here as well, going through, and okay, the first ending with a repeat. So when we get to this point in the music, we'll be going back up to the top. Going through this, and then taking the second ending, okay, and then going back through, nothing really here, and then a fermata at the end. Okay, number 6 is difficult rhythms. So for this, it's kind of self-explanatory, but it's anything that makes you do a double take. So as we go through this, beginning is pretty easy, half notes, whole notes, chord notes. Alright, so this one we start on the and of 1. If that is something that's more challenging for you, then that might be a good spot to just take a quick look at before you actually do the sight reading, just so when you hit that later in the piece, it's not going to be a surprise. Okay, that's okay, going through. Okay, this one actually might be a little tricky. So this one, you have 4 eighth notes, followed by eighth note triplets, followed by a chord note. So this measure right here, the rhythm might get a little bit tricky on you, so if that is the case, please practice it beforehand, just kind of run through it, just at least think through that portion, so when you're actually going to sight read it, it's not the first time that you're seeing it. Okay, and that's it for the end here. Oh, actually, maybe in this section right here, so a little bit of syncopation, right, starting on the end of 1 right here, going to the end of 2 before we hit beat 3. So that also might be something that might be a little bit tricky for you to go through. Okay, number 7 is repetitive sections. So this does not refer to this repeats like we already covered. This is more of measures or phrases that repeat themselves throughout the piece. So a good example of that would be right here. This measure right here and this measure right here are completely identical as far as the notes go. They do have different dynamic markings on them, and so for that you might have to do something a little bit different, but at least for the sake of reading the notes and the rhythms, these 2 measures are identical. Okay, so as we go through this, look for anything else that looks familiar. This right here, this rhythm is the same as this rhythm right here. It is different notes, but it's the same rhythm, so if you get it once, then you can get it both times. And it looks like that's it. Okay, on to the 8th section, which is darker areas. This refers to literally any spot on the piece that is darker in color, and basically areas that have the most amount of notes. So as you're going through it, there's the most amount of notes in this piece, since it's mostly quarter notes, half notes, and whole notes. Anything that's an eighth note and faster, I would say, is a darker area, something that you'd want to look at. So again, we have this section right here, which again repeats at this point here. So if that does look difficult to you, now's a good time to go through and make sure you practice it before we actually do the sight reading. Okay, we already talked about it, but this measure right here, and actually really the measure after it as well. So these two measures might be a little bit challenging for you. And if they are, then just again, make sure you take a second to look at them, try to figure out what the rhythm is, maybe finger through it on your instrument before we actually attempt playing it. Okay, number 9, dynamics and articulations. So let's go through dynamics first. Start off at mezzo piano, get up to mezzo forte right here. Okay, second ending, you're going to be crescendoing into a forte at the same time that it actually gets faster as well, something to keep in mind. And then here you're going to be slowing down into a softer tempo until you get to the end. Okay, articulations. This one, you're going to find a few of these kind of phrases, I think. Or at least you'll see 2, maybe. So we have long, short, long, short. It's legato, staccato, legato, staccato. Here on these eighth notes, we have a little bit of an interesting articulation on it. Make sure you take a look at that. These are legatos, pretty straightforward. This again repeats. An accent, so again, this part really has to be emphasized that it's forte and it's accented and it's faster. It's probably the climax of the piece. Okay, another accent right here. This rhythm, or this articulation, different rhythm, but same articulation as up here. Okay, and that's about it. All right, so the last section is shape and direction. For this one, it really kind of comes down to interpretation. And this is one that if you're playing in an ensemble, make sure you listen very closely around you so you can make sure that your interpretation is what's matching the rest of the ensemble and that you're not completely in left field. Okay, so basically the easiest kind of rules of thumb here are if a line goes up, you can crescendo, and if a line goes down, you can decrescendo. And again, that's a rule of thumb. It's not in every single time you should be doing this kind of thing. But for example, right here, so we have mezzo piano, you can probably crescendo up a little bit right here for this first measure, get a little stagnant on this note right here, and then decrescendo down until you get to here. And then now you're at mezzo forte, so you can get a little bit louder again. In this measure, you can go ahead and decrescendo this back down to this G. And then here you can crescendo, decrescendo, back down to that mezzo piano. Again, these are going to be a lot smaller dynamic changes for the most part than something as drastic from a mezzo piano up to forte or something, but just a little bit of direction just to make it sound more musical, not just stagnant the entire time. Okay, so moving on, second ending, we have this crescendoing up to here already written, and then from here, so a forte here and a mezzo piano all the way over here. In between that, this line in general is moving down. So for this first section right here, this one can all decrescendo. You can crescendo up to this G, and then decrescendo back down to this A at mezzo piano. And then from here, I'd say maybe a little bit of change right in this section, and then you're ending right in that same mezzo piano kind of range. All right, so that's the more in-depth version. Now I want to do 2 examples that are more real-time. For this one, I'm going to be going very quickly through. Typically for auditions, or when you're playing in an ensemble, you will only have maybe 30 seconds or a minute on average to be able to go through this, so that's our goal. Okay, sight reading practice number 2. Okay, here we go. So, time signature, 4/4. Key signature, we are in the key of A, that's 3 sharps, F sharp, C sharp, and G sharp. Tempo and style, we are at 120 beats per minute, and this is a march, which means tempo is going to be pretty strong on this one. Okay, number 4 is do they change? So I'm going to go through this. I don't see anything changing. No, cool. Number 5 is the roadmap. So this is going to be, again, just repeats, anything that stops us going from beginning to end. We do see a repeated section right here, so that's something to note. Difficult rhythms. This beginning part, it's just eighth notes, not too difficult of a rhythm. This one right here might be a little bit something to take a look at. And then at the end here, 4/8 notes, a quarter note, 4/16, and then 8/16 followed by 4/8 notes, and then a dotted quarter. So it's maybe right in here and right in here, something you might want to take a look at. Okay, now we're going to look at repetitive sections. Okay, so this rhythm matches this rhythm, different notes, but same rhythm. These first 2 beats match these second 2 beats. This measure matches that measure as far as rhythm is concerned. And that's all I'm seeing. Now we're looking at darker areas. Well, we already know it's going to be this bottom line. We already took a look at that. So this is a good chance to just take maybe 5 seconds to go through and just finger through it on your instrument. Okay? Dynamics and articulations. Okay, starting off mezzo forte, crescendo up to forte right here, mezzo forte, and that's where it stays at the end. Articulations, we have a lot of different slurs going through here. Staccato slur, kind of things are changing right there, as well as on this section. And some slurs here. Okay, cool. Number 10 is shape and direction. So this is a march. We're not going to be doing too much with it, because this is, again, something that's maybe performed on a street in a marching band. So you have some dynamics, but not a ton. All right, so for this, some little dynamic change right here might be good, getting up to a little bit louder, come back down right here up to forte, mezzo forte for this section. And then anytime you have faster lines like this, something you might want to consider taking up a little bit, making a little bit louder. Okay, cool. That was the second one. Third one, again, we're trying to go through even faster on this one, just so we can really get to that real-time kind of speed on this. All right, number 3. Pad signature. We are in 4/4 key signature. We're in the key of C, no sharps, no flats. Tempo and style, we are at 90 beats per minute. We're at medium swing, so this is going to be jazz. Okay, 4 is do they change? Going quickly through this, okay, yes, we change to the key of D, which is F sharp and C sharp. Same time, we also switch to a bossa nova. Bossa nova is going to have a straight 8th instead of a swung 8th note, so that's something to keep in mind. Okay, going through, and then it looks like in this coda section, we're going to stay in medium swing. Number 5 is the roadmap. Okay, going through, so there's a repeat right here. That goes back to the top again. And then this DCL coda means we go up to the very beginning again, come all the way through, get to coda, go back down to the coda right here, and do that to the end, and there's a fermata. Difficult rhythms. So for this one, 8ths are pretty easy. 16th middle of 8ths, maybe something to look at. A lot of syncopation right here. Definitely something to take a look at for a second. Okay, and then also some syncopation right here, but different syncopation, so that's also something to take a look at. Make sure you really got that down. And that's about it. Okay. Darker areas. Immediately I see this right here as 16ths, and I see this right here. This one looks more difficult, so I'm going to start with that one. Also, this starts off the exact same way, so if we learn this one, we learn both. Number 9 is dynamics and articulations. So we go through this. We have piano up to mezzo forte, mezzo piano, crescendo up to mezzo forte. All right, so it looks like we're staying in a pretty quiet range for the most part. Articulation-wise, looks like a standard jazz articulation here, standard swung 8th note for the most part. Keep in mind a couple staccatos along the way. It's all good. Okay, and then shape and direction. So this might be something where we go up right here, come back down right here, crescendo up, as written, and then decrescendo back down right here. Then we can kind of build this up a little bit if we want to, get up to this A right here before we decrescendo back down again, to lead us right down into the piano, or right into the bossa nova section. Great, this is all pretty much in the same range, not too much there. Crescendo, decrescendo this definitely, which is perfect leading up to that piano right there. That's great. At the coda, going back to right here, so we can crescendo this line as we were already planning on, go through that, and then decrescendo to the end right here. Make sure that's maybe on like a mezzo forte or mezzo piano maybe. All right, cool, that's the check. Thanks for watching! My name is Andrew Berg, and if you like this video and want to learn more about music, I post once a week covering everything from practical practice tips like this to music fundamentals to improvisation. Please comment down below if you have any questions or suggestions for me. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you get notified the next time I post. One last thing. Practice.